Implicit and explicit conversion part 2. Here we have a variable called double n1 of type double. We assign it a value of 100. Here we try to automatically assign it to a int, convert it to int. We see right away that Visual Studio is screaming at us and telling us that we can't do that because we cannot assign a value of double into int. But if we want to force it, so we have to explicitly convert it using the round brackets and the type we want to convert into. And of course, the Console.WriteLine will show us the value of 100. That's because value of 100 is acceptable value for int. Here we see another example. Double n2 of type double. We assign it a value of 3 billion, much more than an int can hold. When we Console.WriteLine will show us the value of 3 billion. But if we try to assign it to an int variable, Visual Studio will scream at us and will say that we can't do that unless we explicitly convert it. Implicitly we can't do that. But explicitly we can do that. But if the number is, as in our example, is much more than an int can hold, we'll see an odd result of the minimum value that int can hold. This explicit conversion of a number much bigger that int can hold will show us a result that the int variable will have a value not expected of the minimum value of a int. Another example. Here we have a variable of type float. We assign it a value of 1.2 f-mean float. When we try to assign it to a double, yes, we can. We can do it in both ways. Implicitly, without casting, without the round brackets here, and explicitly here. We can do it both. Why we can do it implicitly? Because a float number is much less than a double variable. And because of that, we can assign a float value into a double variable. Of course, explicitly we can do it also. But if we will try to take the value of the double and assign it to float, of course Visual Studio will tell us we can't do that. Unless we will do it using the explicit conversion, using the round brackets and the type inside. We're telling the Visual Studio that we know what we are doing. We want to force it to convert the double value into a float number. The result may be not as we expected. Here we have a variable of type string, and we assign it a value of 1 plus 2 equal 3. This is a string. This is not numbers. As we see the quotation marks on both sides, this is text string. And the Console.WriteLine will show us the result 1 plus 2 equals 3. What happens if we assign it a string variable, assign it a value of a string plus a number? Of course, in this case, the language will implicitly convert it. We don't have to do nothing. Well, the language will implicitly convert this number into a string. When we see a string on one side and the number on the other side, the language will implicitly convert the number into string, and then we'll see the result the same as here. 1 second. Same result. 1 plus 2 equals 3. What will happen here? 1 plus 2 equals plus 1 plus 2. Here, exactly the same. Once we have a string on one side, all other parts will be converted implicitly to string. So we'll see 1 plus 2 equal 1, 2. 1 plus 2 equals, this is the first part. Then this will be converted to string, and plus this will be converted to string 2. As we see, that's why we see here 12. 1 plus 2 equals 12. But here is difference, because here this part 1 plus 2 is inside round brackets, and this round brackets telling the system to first of all calculate this part. So that's why this part will be equal 3. It will be calculated first before everything. So this part will be 3, and then we will combine these parts together. 1 plus 2 equals 3, and this part, of course, 3 will be implicitly converted into string, so that's why the result will be 1 plus 2 equals 3. Int age equals 30, and string str3 I equals im plus age plus years old will be, of course, combined together. This part will be converted into a string, and the result will be I am 30 years old. Here we have a double called write, and we assign it a value of string of int. One is int, another one is another int, and 4 is also int. But if we see here that this part 1 plus 1 is 2, and this is and there is a round brackets around, means that this part will be calculated first. So this equals 2, and then there is another round brackets, this from here to here. So this 2 will be converted to int of type will be converted to double, implicitly converted to double. So this part 2, it's not int, it's already a double, and then it will be divided by 4, and 2 divided by 4, of course here will be 0.5. That's why Console.WriteLine will show us 0.5. But the next line, wrong, if we will write it like so, then all of this is a int for now. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 divided by 4 is 0. And only then, after we calculated this part, then the 0 we are trying to convert it into double. So instead of the 0 will be int, now it will be double, and when we'll print it, the wrong will show us a value of 0. So we have to think carefully before we implicitly converting something where we need exactly to convert. In this case, the conversion occurs here inside these round brackets. So the conversion of 1 plus 1 occurs before we try to divide it by 4. So 1 plus 1 is 2, divided by 4 is 0.5, and that's why we see here 0.5. But this time this part occurs first, and this part say that 1 plus 1, 2, divided by 4 is 0, and then only then we are trying to convert it to double, but already it's already 0, so that's why it shows us 0.